All right, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me now. Got a good number of you guys that are jumping on board here, and I want to encourage you, if you haven't already made a comment that you are watching, it would really be helpful to me to know who is out there on the live recording, well, not recording, but the live class. And it shows me a number, 15, 17. I know some of you are watching together, but even then, that number is different than the numbers I count. So I'm always just curious, who's out there and participating, and it helps me kind of visualize faces and things like that. So anyway, I'm really glad you're here. Looking forward to tonight's study, continuing in the Sermon on the Mount, and just the ultimate preaching example we have of Jesus, and not just example, but sample. The sermon itself and the impact it can have on us. So let's go ahead and again, thank you guys for letting me know that you're here, and I appreciate that. I've tried to flash several of your names up there, and I believe I've gotten most everybody. But let's start with a prayer, and then we'll jump into the Sermon on the Mount. And I don't know if I will, how my voice will hold up. I've got some allergies. I took a COVID test. I was negative, so it definitely feels like allergies. So I've been outside a little bit here and there. I know the weather's changing some. So anyway, hope you're all doing well. And let's jump right in. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the sunshine, the beautiful spring weather that's coming our way. We are thankful for that. Thankful for opportunity to be together tonight and to study and read and apply Jesus' sermon to the crowds, the disciples, here in Matthew chapter 5. And we're thankful for these words of truth and life, and from the master teacher, from Jesus himself. And we're thankful for that. Pray that we will be able to dive a little deeper and understand these and apply these to our lives with the help of your Spirit. That's through Jesus we pray. Amen. All right. Again, glad you're here. And let's begin with a little bit of review. I try to review every week. I know you know that. Eventually, my review will not be as long, just because I won't have time. If I'm reviewing everything, I'll have 1 minute left for class. And I really have found that to be helpful for myself to know, okay, where were we? It's been a week. And so let's find out where we are and kind of go from there. So Matthew, let's see, Matthew chapter 4, 12 through 17. This was the example, this was kind of leading up to the Sermon on the Mount, but Jesus hears John has been put into prison. He withdraws to Galilee, and he leaves Nazareth and goes to Capernaum, another city up there by the great lake, and he does this in fulfillment of what the prophet Isaiah said. And the people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. And we know Jesus is that light. And here was what he preached. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. So we have this example of Jesus' message just encapsulated. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. So what is this kingdom of heaven? And we've talked about that. And so let me give you one more example and we'll review real quick. But Jesus went throughout Galilee, a little bit further down the same passage, teaching synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, healing every disease, sickness among the people. Whoops, I think I jumped a verse there. News about him spread all over Syria. People were brought to him. Those with diseases, pain, demon-possessed, seizures, paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds began to follow him, and this is from all over the land of Israel, really. So we see that Jesus is this incredible teacher, and it's not just the words he says, it's the power that accompanies those, the healings, the demon exorcisms, the, just the mighty works that he does. And so he's preaching all along this kingdom of heaven. What in the world is this? And so here's this kingdom of heaven, which is, again, the realm, the reign, the dominion of God, the area in which he rules and has control over things that happen, things that are done, that are said. And there's this aspect of it that's already but not yet. So the kingdom of heaven is here, and Jesus says it's near, and he later says it's here. It's more than the church, and yet that the church is a part of it. It is also where God himself is working outside of the church. It is, in its fullest sense, the kingdom of heaven will be here when Jesus comes back and Judgment Day happens and all of those things. So, I read another example recently, and that I thought was helpful. I talked about my previous example was a basketball game and how you can be outside of the game watching, and there are rules on the court and behavior on the court, and someone who has control over certain things on the court, a referee or a coach, or the point guard calling plays, or who has the ball and who doesn't have the ball. I mean, there's certain things you can do, certain ways you can move with the basketball, without the basketball. What's allowed, what's illegal, okay. So we're understanding this concept in a way of a kingdom, right? And maybe that's the way, in the bigger sense of the world, right? It's all under God's control and creation, but the kingdom is broken in a unique way with Jesus, where he is, and he's preaching that, hey, there's another kingdom, and this Sermon on the Mount lays out some of the understanding of the things that are important and valuable, and the way things are supposed to be, and it's going to be different than what's happening outside of the kingdom. Now the kingdom is spreading, and eventually it's all going to completely overlap, but that's kind of in a quick nutshell. So my other example was this: when the let's look at it this way. When the English or the Puritan colonists, however you want to talk about it, and again, I'm not getting into political correctness or anything, but just the fact that a country came and set up a colony on another country. Okay, right, wrong, otherwise, I'm not into that. For this example, other than to say they staked their claim on land, and they expected rules and laws and things to be run as if it were their land. So, go back to the American Revolution, and the problem was the American colonists did not want English rule anymore. They did not want to follow the kingdom of the King of England, right? They didn't want to follow his rules. They wanted their own thing. So the American colonies were kind of an outpost, an outcropping of this kingdom of England, right? So think about kingdom of heaven. This is heaven come down to earth, and Jesus is performing miracles, and he's casting out demons, and he's healing people, and he's saying things that are spectacularly different about being poor in spirit and merciful and mourning, and that those are blessings. And okay, so this is what's going on, this inbreaking of the kingdom of heaven into the world. And it's just beginning to build, okay? And so that's the setting for the Sermon on the Mount. And I don't want you to miss that, because this sermon is not just an isolated, kabloop, right in the middle of Matthew. It's related to the kingdom of heaven, and that Jesus is announcing this kingdom of heaven, and it's very different than the kingdom of this world. And we know that as Christians living here. So anyway, I know I'm pounding on that, but please don't miss that. And all right, so let's pick up at the beginning of the sermon. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him. He began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." And here's the next two that we're going to add to tonight. I'm sorry, we did this one already, I believe. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. All right, so Jesus painting a picture of what citizenship really is like in this kingdom, and how you're going to be blessed and happy and successful and under the favor of the king, right? You will be blessed if you do these things, or if you find yourself in these situations. Poor in spirit, mourning, meek, hungering and thirsting, not for material things, but for righteousness. If you're merciful instead of vengeful and take what's mine. And so it's a very different worldview, isn't it, that's being portrayed under this. And so let's continue to look a little bit more deeper at these two newest Beatitudes, as they're called. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I like that, right? The pure in heart. So what does that mean? Pure in heart. Well, let's break it down just a little bit. Let's talk about heart first. The heart is not, in this sense, the physical organ that lives and pounds and beats in your chest. It's not talking about that thing. When we talk about heart in a spiritual sense, we're talking about a human being's total intellectual, emotional, and moral nature. Total intellectual, emotional, and moral nature. So, whoops, you caught me. I clicked a little quick. Sorry, my throat's still a little off. But we're talking about what's inside a man, right? Or a woman, a human being. What's inside of them? And so now let's break this down. What does it mean to be pure in heart? Does that mean to have moral cleanness? I have moral purity. I think yes, it does mean that. There would be no expectation for someone who is not or impure in heart and character and intellectual emotion to think they will see God, right? We need to be pure as he is pure, holy as he is holy. Not convinced that that is fully what he's talking about. What about spiritual things? Focused on spiritual things. To be purely focused on that. Well, yes and no. We're talking about the fact that each of these Beatitudes can have kind of multiple meanings. if you're poor in spirit, that can be also, and we're cueing some of this from what Luke's Sermon on the Plain and the similarity there, but he talks about just being poor, that you're blessed. Matthew talks about being poor in spirit. So it can be related. So if you're pure in heart, it means you have a pureness about you regarding spiritual things. You're focused on spiritual things. Sorry, let me throw out one more possible explanation, which I think I tend to believe ought to be included in this. And that is a single-mindedness or a single focus, a singular focus. I am pure, focused in heart. My devotion is undivided. I'm not serving God one time and idols or man or the creation or some desire of my heart at another. I'm purely, completely, if you think about a metal, okay? So if we say something is pure gold, right? Then and we are getting a price for that, or we're having something made out of pure gold. Let's even back in these days. What if someone were to say, I could stretch this a little bit. I can put some other metals in there, and it's still going to look golden, and have the properties of gold. But I'm going to put, I'm going to mix some other metal. I'm going to make an alloy. I'm going to put some nickel or some silver or some iron or something in there, and I'm going to sell it as pure gold. No, I'm buying pure gold. Now, again, the problem, isn't whether you buy gold jewelry or you buy, 10 karat, 14 karat, 20, whatever. That's not what I'm getting at. But my point is, when we speak of something being pure, we talk about the fact that it has no other contaminants or substitutes or anything in it. So I'm thinking when they discuss pure in heart, there's a single-mindedness, a purity of devotion. And that's the person that's going to see God. Now, let's look at some verses that can bring multiple of these threads into focus, okay? Not just that one, but some of these others as well. And this kind of explains what the heart is, right? Above all else, guard your heart. Well, that sounds like good advice from a physician, right? Be careful what you eat. Your heart is going to, you don't want cholesterol to build up or plaque or high blood pressure. Okay. I'm not sure that's what's going on here in Proverbs. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. There might be another version that says, for it's the wellspring of life. That's true. From a physical standpoint, if your heart's no longer beating, you're not alive anymore, right? But it's true from a emotional, moral, spiritual, intellectual standpoint as well. That is the centerpiece of the man, of the woman, of the human. This pumping, again, not the organ, but this soul type of you, okay? Soul is another word, but I'm hoping that makes sense. So here's an example from Proverbs about the heart. Here's from Matthew 15, the words of Jesus later on. For out of the heart come evil thoughts. Now he's not talking about the organ, the physical heart that's pumping blood. He's talking about that inner part of the man. From out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. And then later on in Matthew, he says, woe to you, teachers of the law, Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're cleaning the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you're full of greed and self-indulgence. And he's using the metaphor of a dirty cup, right? Dirty dishes. You're cleaning the inside of this cup, the outside of this cup, but the inside's got junk in it still, like a dirty coffee. If I were to show you this Yeti or this tumbler here, and I was to take let's use this piece of paper as a cloth, and I'm washing it and I'm cleaning it up and I'm doing around the edges here, and then I'm like, hey, go ahead and drink out of this. I'm guessing you'd be hesitant if you can hear my voice at all. It's a little bit, and I've got a cough drop in, and I'm guessing you'd say, I'm going to pass. I'm going to say, why? I cleaned it. You're going to say, Dave, the inside of the cup is dirty. You've had your mouth on it, and what's inside is dirty. Even the outside, I'm like, I use soap. I use alcohol wipes. No. Okay. Jesus is using that comparison, talking about the heart, right? And he says, blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will be clean. Oh, start inside out, right? Start inside out with things and clean the inside, then the outside is going to be clean. And then he talks about the whitewashed tombs that are beautiful on the outside. In other words, the gravestones, the headstones have been, washed up, and there's flowers placed and all this stuff. But if you think about it, it's a grave. There's a dead body, in those days that would have been there, right? Same as today, if you go to some place like Arlington, or even over here at the battlefield, Stones River Battlefield, you see these rows of uniform markers, and it's impressive. But then if you stop and think about it, what's underground? And you're like, ugh, decayed remains, right? Not so clean, not so, doesn't match the outside. So this is what Jesus is saying. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you're full of hypocrisy and wickedness. And again, let's read one more. Since then, am I reading correctly? Let's see. Yes, I am. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. This is the words of Paul to the church at Colossae. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So here's kind of a myriad of verses that are talking about the heart and the aspect of keeping it morally clean and pure, but also about it not being divided. And if you think about those other words of Jesus, the outside of the cup and the inside of the cup, to have it completely clean and pure, you got to start with the inside, and then the outside will be clean. And so I kind of tend to think that aspect of the word pure in heart adds some depth to what he's trying to say, and we're going to see lines up with a lot of the next few things, the rest of this chapter, next 3 chapters, really 2 chapters, about the way the inside and the outside person match. Whether you're purely focused on God, or whether you're divided, right? So we'll come back to this theme in some of the other, when we get to those passages, but I'm wondering if that's not worth considering. All right, well, let's look at the next one, the next Beatitude, and we're just going to do 2 tonight. I hope that's okay. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called children of God. Now, again, understand that these are the, I don't want to say the entry conditions or the admittance requirements for the new kingdom of heaven, but I kind of do. I mean, it's this different set of rules for being involved in the kingdom of heaven. And just think with me, first of all, what this says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they're going to be called children of God. Well, think about our world for just a second. And do we have many of those? Do we have many peacemakers? I don't know. It doesn't take long. I mean, you can think about examples from the news, Russia, Ukraine. You can think about our own political party system. You can think about rival news stations, rival candidates, rival political parties, rival sports teams. Just this afternoon, something came across my news feed about two coaches passing in the handshake line afterwards, and one punched the other, punched at them. I don't know if they may. I don't know what happened, but it's kind of like, okay, everybody is violent and not seeking peace, and yet here is Jesus saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers, not the peace breakers, peacemakers. You're blessed." Now, what does that mean? Is that what is to be a peacemaker? What does that mean? Let's think for a second. I'm going to say a couple things here. That peace is not the absence of conflict, and it's not compromise with the enemy. Compromise, okay? It's not the absence of conflict. You can still have a disagreement with someone. You can still be at odds with someone. You can still be upset, differ, and there can be peace. We'll unpack this a little bit more, but that's not what it means, because in this world, you're going to have tribulation. You're going to have trouble, Jesus says in John, right? Paul says in Romans, these are verses not on the screen, but if it's at all possible, as much as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Well, that may not be possible. And the next several Beatitudes are going to talk about persecution. And so if the definition of peace is the absence of conflict, that's not going to work. And it's also doesn't mean to just give in to the enemy and just peace at all costs, give in and then that will mean that things are peaceful if you don't put up a fight where you need to. That's not what we're talking about. And also, does it mean personal contentment? Personal contentment, kind of pardon me, because I'm I do not believe in Eastern religion but kind of that Buddhist Zen, I'm at peace with all things, I'm at one, unity, I have no conflicts, I don't think those are the things that we're talking about here necessarily. So what are we talking about with peace? Well, I'm gonna break it down this way, and you see I've got three different little sections there. That peace has to be made, right? To make peace, to be a peacemaker, to make peace, to work towards peace. And I'm going to say that means between man and God, between man and himself, and man. Okay? So I'm going to say that Christians are to be helping people reconcile with God. Technically, not technically, but actually, we are against God if we are choosing a life of sin. And there's plenty of passages. I can't remember if I put one in here about being reconciled to God or not as part of our mission. I'm not sure that I did, but there's that passage in Corinthians. I don't know if it's 2 Corinthians. I can't remember about our ministry of reconciliation, right? And reconciling man to God. So we're helping people get right with God, making peace with God. Our sins deserve punishment and wrath, and we're helping people make peace. And a person who's not at peace with themselves, so that's the second one, man and himself. If I'm not at peace with myself, I'm going to have a hard time being in a position to help you make peace with who you need to make peace with, right? Whether it's God or yourself or others. So I need to be able to accept, and there's a certain element of personal contentment in that. It's more contentment with God. And then the last thing is with neighbors, with other humans. Am I at peace with my brother, my sister, with my enemy? Again, it can be an uneasy peace, but, and I think the Sermon on the Mount is going to lay some of this out as we talk about persecution in the next few Beatitudes and some other examples. But that's different than the world. If an enemy, if you have an enemy, then you are to protect yourself and to fight. Punch him first before he punches you, right? And to fight for what's yours and protect yourself. And again, I'm not saying that to roll over and to just make peace at any cost. I don't think that's what this means. However, I think we as Christians have kind of overlooked that we're to be called children of God, sons of God, daughters of God, by helping make peace. And whether it's in families, in our own family, in our own work, in our own church, in our own small group, our class, our friends, our neighbors, we're to be people of peace that are trying to make and reconcile relationships. So again, let's look here at the words of Jesus about what he means by peace, and we'll look at a couple more things as we wrap up. Jesus said in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I don't give it to you as the world gives it. Don't let your hearts be troubled and don't be afraid." So he's saying my peace is different than the world's peace. That's a different thing. And here's some words from Paul in Ephesians. "Now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far away have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace. He's made two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility." What's he talking about, by the way? "By setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations, his purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility." He's talking about Jews and Gentiles. That Christ is the peacemaker between these two groups, and the dividing wall of hostility to be broken down, and to bring. So going back to my statement that our job as a Christian, our mission is also to be helping our brethren, humans, make peace with one another. That's what Paul's saying that Jesus did. He brought peace from man to man. In fact, think about this. We know the first sin recorded, right? Adam and Eve. What was the second sin that's recorded? Unless I'm wrong. It involved their children, Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel, his brother. So there's been hostility, man against man. And when I say man against man, I mean human against human. Since the beginning, and Satan has pitted us against one another. So anyway, let's keep going here. Whoops. All right. So later on in the Sermon on the Mount, you're going to hear this. "You've heard it was said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy." Right? That's what the world would say. That's not the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is, I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Now remember what he said peacemakers would be? Blessed are the peacemakers, that you will be called children of God. So that's reemphasized here, I believe, right? If you love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. All right. So we will revisit some of these themes in the Beatitudes. They're going to pop up all through the Sermon on the Mount, and about being a peacemaker and merciful, and about being pure in heart and not divided. And so, anyway, so this is kind of a preamble to the remainder of the sermon, or the main part of the sermon. All right, so the last thing I want to say is next week we will look at the last of the Beatitudes, and then we'll begin to transition into the other parts of the sermon. The last part of the Beatitudes, like I said before, involves the blessing on those who are persecuted, and how we are to be in those situations. And again, try to keep in mind the whole mindset about Jesus painting this new life in the kingdom of heaven. Because that's the way the kingdom of heaven, while it is on earth, is going to be. It's also the way it's going to be when it's in its full glory and Jesus is on the throne and Jesus is sitting there. I appreciate Charles Waldron's comments this morning during communion about the Lamb on the throne that was worthy to open the seals, and the fact that we'll be gathered around worshiping, and this will be the way to live, the way we live. Now, we may not be mourning there, but you understand what I'm saying? It will be about the humble pursuit, the pure pursuit, putting others ahead of ourselves, hungering and thirsting for God, and that's the way the Christian life is. That's the way we're called to live. So, all right, I've gone over a little bit. I apologize. Anyway, I hope this is a blessing to you. Continue to study on your own. I encourage you. And memorize. I have actually memorized. I'm kind of proud of myself. I'm not being poor in spirit. But maybe I'm a little surprised is what I am. I've been able to memorize the Beatitudes and overcome the first version I learned of King James, which would have been fine. It's actually, I think, more poetic. But it's been hard to memorize NIV when I learned King James Version as a child and as a teen, I should say. And but anyway, if you're interested in doing that, I encourage you to do that. Let me show you real quick what I did. I have printed it off, and I have 3 copies. Okay, this is my trick. I have one in my bathroom when I'm getting ready in the morning, getting ready at night. I have one in my car. I have a lot of downtime in my car, sitting at lights, sitting in drive-thrus, waiting on people, whatever. I have one in my car, and I have one here at the office, and they're all the same. And I've just got chapter 5 printed out, and I just went to the Bible Gateway and printed out and formatted it a little bit. But see, here's my Sermon on the Mount Beatitudes, and a little note here about the order. I've had to memorize the first starting letters because I get a little confused. I'm just memorizing 2 verses a week, just pecking away at it. And I'm kind of telling you this not to say, way to go, Dave, as much as I'm making myself accountable. And anyway, I hope some of you guys are still trying to do that. And it's definitely not too late. You just kind of start pecking away at it. And I want to know the words of Jesus, so that when I'm in situations and I want to live by the kingdom of this world, and I want to live by David's kingdom and my rules, I'm reminded of what he said and what he wants me to do and be. And I want to put those in my heart. So, all right, enough from me. God bless you guys. Be glad to talk with any of you anytime. How I can encourage you and bless you, let me know. Reach out to me. Thanks for letting me know you're watching tonight. Several other folks added on here. And looks like some strange spam kind of stuff here keeps showing up. But anyway, I do appreciate it. And I hope you have a great evening. So God bless you.